Okay, guys, so today I'm going to react to Mark Rippetoe's video on the Art of Manliness, their channel, How to Deadlift with Mark Rippetoe. So Mark Rippetoe is like a major authority figure in the industry. Starting Strength, everybody knows about that book. Everybody knows about the program when you're starting out and all that. So I'm just going to go through and see if I agree with what he says. If you like this kind of content, give it an upvote, comment, and subscribe for the sake of the algorithm. I appreciate you guys helping me grow the channel. We're pushing towards 83,000 subscribers strong now, so thank you very much. I couldn't do it without you guys. But, I feel like I have some credentials too as far as deadlift is concerned. I've pulled 871 in competition, which is 395 kilos, and I pulled 920 pounds in the gym, 420 kilos roughly. So I'm going to go through and see, what Mark says, and I'll see if I agree with what he says. I have not seen this video yet. So I don't know exactly what he's going to say. I know some of his principles, and I'm a little hesitant to agree with some of the stuff he says, but let's see. Let's go through it.
It's going to come to the bar and place your shins about an inch from the barbell. Good.
So far, I agree with that. You want to start with the bar over the middle of the feet. I always line up mid-foot with the bar because if you have the bar right up against your shins, the bar is going to run right into your shins on the way up, skim your shins, and then it's going to kick out in front of you. So you want the bar to travel in a straight line from the floor to your knees. You do not actually want the bar being in contact with the shins, especially as a conventional deadlifter. For a sumo deadlifter, it's a little different because the bar is in fact going to graze the inside of the shins on the way up. And that's why it's more important to wear like long socks and stuff for sumo. I've noticed that as well. The bar has to stay a little closer. But due to the mechanics of a conventional deadlift, the bar, you want it to travel in a straight line from floor to knees without creating that friction against the shins. That's only going to slow you down. So I do agree, start with the bar over the middle of the feet. Give yourself a little room. Do not start with the bar up against the shins.
This is the bar right over the middle of the foot, which is the obvious place to have it, right?
Now, that is not the bar over the middle of the feet, so I don't understand what's going on here because he just told the guy, have the bar over the middle of your feet, but the bar is basically right up against his shins. So I'm not sure where this is coming from. The bar is way too close to his shins. If he deadlifts in this position starting out, he's going to lose so much speed off the floor, it's not even funny. So I don't know why Mark hasn't picked up on this and told him to shift the bar forward further. This is a recipe for disaster. The bar is going to literally graze the shins the whole way up. And what happens when you get set in a deadlift position, what do your shins do? Your shins are not vertical. They're not straight up and down like this when you're standing. If your shins were vertical, straight up and down, this would have more merit. But what do the shins do? The shins incline forward like this. So when you're deadlifting, your shins are about at a 30 degree angle, sometimes upwards of, well, I wouldn't say 45, but 30-degree angle. So if the bar's against the shins, it's going to go like this out in front of you and get pushed forward. So you want the bar about here to travel in a straight line. It should be a straight line to the knees. There should be no contact. So this is a big problem if he allows him to start in this position.
If the bar is over there, you can't pick it up, right? If the bar is here, you can't pick it up, but it'd be a little easier. If the bar is here, you still can't pick it up. If the bar is here, you can pick it up, but see, the pattern is to get the bar as close to the middle of your foot as you can get it, because that's where everything's in balance. So we're just going to place it there by placing the bar 1 inch from the shin, which is the middle of the foot for everybody we've ever seen. Toes are going to be pointed slightly out, which does a couple of things.
No, I do agree with that. The toes will be pointed out very slightly. That's going to give you a little more room. Now, I would also narrow this guy's stance. If he narrows his stance, he's going to give his arms more room to where his arms aren't running into his knees. But again, the bar is just way too close to his shins here. That's the first problem. So I don't know. That needs to be corrected right away. The bar needs to be a little further away from him.
This is a little room between your thighs for your belly, and it engages all the external rotator hip musculature. So we add that to the movement with that little toe out thing. Now,
you are going to get a little more glute and adductor engagement by pointing the feet out slightly. Don't get crazy with it. Like, I never have agreed with the duck stance on conventional deadlift. But if they're pointed out slightly, you can kind of wedge the toes into the floor and get a little more adductor and glute activation.
From now on, every step that we're going to do must not move the bar because we have it exactly where we want it to be. Okay? So
I agree with that as well. I know a lot of guys like to roll the bar into their shins on deadlift. Like Benny Magnuson, one of the most famous deadlifters, made this popular. But I think it's a poor choice to do it. Like you're throwing off your whole setup. You want to keep the bar in one spot and use the bar to set up your positioning. So if the bar is shifting when you're setting up your positioning is going to be all off. So keep the bar stationary at the start. I do agree with that.
with stiff knees, take your grip. And the grip will be just outside the legs, as narrow as you can take it.
No, I don't necessarily agree with this either. I would widen the grip out to where you're halfway in between the rings and then the start of the knurling. So I would actually shift his grip to where it's about here, right in the middle. You want to do that because you'd free up more room for your arms to stay taut. So we want our arms to be as long as possible on the deadlift to create as much tension through them as possible. There should be no slack in the arms. So if the arms are in close, what happens is you run into your legs, your knees will get in the way, your legs will get in the way. So this is why I would have him narrow his stance slightly and widen his grip. It's going to give him more room to get tight off the floor.
Put it back where it was. There. Now, bring your shins forward until shins touch the bar. Knee.
Never been a fan of that cue either. Shins to bar. I just don't like that cue at all. I just you don't want contact with the shins on the deadlift. It's going to slow you down. Fast deadlifters generally don't skim their shins on the way up, especially conventional pullers. I should put that caveat on. Not necessarily sumo, but on conventional deadlifter, if you want to be explosive, creating a bunch of friction where the bar is scraping against your shins is not going to help.
You stop right there, and then they go out into the elbows, just a tiny little bit.
See, that's terrible advice. He's saying drive your knees out against your elbows, which is going to create slack in your arms. You can already see there's bend in this guy's arms, and he's not going to be as tight. He's not going to be as explosive off the floor. Why would I want to put slack in my arms? It's going to make my whole body less tight. You want to widen the grip out so that you can get your arms completely taut. Long arms is the key to a big deadlift. Get your arms as long as possible. How do you do that? If I'm here, I push down with my shoulders and my traps. So I don't want to pull back like that. That's a big mistake a lot of people make. They try to retract their scapula. That's going to shorten your pull, or that's going to lengthen your pull because your arms are going to be shorter. I want to push down. All the best deadlifters are going to create tension by pushing down with their shoulders and traps, and that'll tighten down on your lats. So if you push down, you'll feel under your armpits. Your lats will start to flare out. You'll tighten down on your lats. You're going to be in the tightest possible position. How do I do that? By having straight arms. So his whole idea of driving the knees out into the arms is terrible because it's just going to create a bunch of slack and make you way slower off the floor. So far, he's got you basically running into the shins with the bar and then creating slack in your arms, which is going to slow you down. So this is like advice to make you slower off the floor.
Step, squeeze the chest up, but don't drop your hips.
Okay, not a big fan of squeezing the chest either. I don't think you want to think about the chest. The chest, you don't want to like tighten it up necessarily. It might tighten up itself when you push down, but I wouldn't think about that cue at all. I'd throw that out the window. I do agree with what he said. Don't drop the hips. Too many people, the biggest mistake I see on deadlift, they try to turn deadlift into a squat. Deadlift is not a squat. The mechanics are not at all the same. Your hips should be almost to where your back is parallel with the floor. Not quite, because that's almost a stiff-legged position, but pretty close. So as soon as guys drop their hips, what happens? Their shoulders get pulled behind the bar or in line with the bar. Then what happens? The bar basically, as soon as they go to pull it, their hips shoot up anyway. The bar runs straight into their shins, and they slow down tremendously. It's a lot of wasted motion. So you want the hips high, shoulders in front of the bar. That's the ideal position.
On hips, you push the bar forward, and we already have it where we want it to be. Squeeze the chest up and drag the bar up your legs.
Yeah, don't drag the bar up your shins. Dragging the bar up your shins is going to create friction. It's going to slow you down. You won't be explosive at all. This guy should be pulling 135 as fast as possible. So if your max is 500 pounds, you still need to pull your warm-ups as fast and explosively as possible. He's pulling these way too slow. I know they're kind of going through the form of it, but he should be teaching him explode up. 135 should be pulled like it's 500 pounds. You need to teach yourself to fire your CNS and be explosive right from the get-go. Very important.
Because if it leaves contact, it goes forward to the middle of the foot. And you finish with chest up nice and high. The only thing that moves is the thoracic spine as you lift the chest. And then you're going to set it down by first unlocking the hips, sliding it down the legs, and Mark. The knees, then they bend.
No. Do not slide the bar down your quads and break with your quads on the way down. That's going to increase your chance of injury more so than if you just let the bar down. Like, not, you don't have to drop the bar. I'm not saying drop the bar, but just let the bar down in front of you. It's not going to hurt your back. No one has gotten injured on a deadlift on the negative portion of the deadlift, the eccentric. No one has done that. Anytime you like strain a back muscle, it's on the concentric on the way up. On the eccentric, you're not going to get injured. Do not break with it down your quads. If anything, that's going to get you injured more than just letting the bar down. So I'm not saying to drop the bar, but let the bar down under some control. But don't break with it on your quads. That's not good advice at all.
Approximately the same place you started. Your tendency previously, I can tell by the way you're moving, has been to try to pull with your hips too low. The squat, the deadlift is not a squat with a bar in hands. It's a pull. It's completely different mechanics. So let's do this again. Take your grip. Don't be on your heels.
Again, he reiterated what I said. The deadlift is not a squat. People sink their hips too low, which pulls their shoulders behind the bar. That's by far the biggest mistake I see. Hips high, shoulders in front of the bar. That's the ideal position deadlifting.
Be in the middle of weight. Point the toes out. Toes pointed out. Knees.
See, he's basically like having the guy drive his knees out into his arms, which is going to be terrible as far as it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to make you lose tension. It's just not a good idea at all. He needs to narrow his stance, widen his grip a little, make sure his arms are taut. Those are some major differences. And the bar is still way too close to this guy's shins.
Out, chest up,
no,
hips
that's
are
not
high.
Good, guys. That's not good.
Good position. Good.
This is not good
and
for him.
Down. Okay? Somebody's told you to pull from the heels. Mid-foot is where you pull. Mid-foot.
That is correct. I do agree with that. You don't want your weight too far back on your heels or too far forward on your toes. You want the bar centered. You want your center of gravity to be right in the middle. You don't want to be leaning back because that's also going to drop your hips and get your shoulders pulled back. But you don't want to be leaning so far forward that your shoulders are way over the bar. They need to be over the bar, but not that far. So keep your weight centered.
That's the balance point. Because that mid-foot is halfway between the heels and the toes. So it's the furthest point from which it takes to perturb your balance. So be in the middle of the foot. Okay, again, come to the bar, the same 135.
Too close to the bar.
Okay, toes are pointed slightly out. And probably you could stand a deadlift with a tiny bit narrower heel. There you go. Okay, what this allows you to do.
See, I like this stance better. He narrowed his stance. That is a correct call on Mark's part. It's going to give him more room for his arms to be free and not be running into his legs. So totally agree. I like the more narrow stance. Why he hasn't corrected him by having him move further away from the bar at the start, I don't know, because he's still lining up way too close to the bar. We'll see what he has to say.
Is reduce the range of motion. If you pull real wide, you have to pull the bar further.
That may be true. A slightly wider grip may increase your range of motion, but you're going to be able to get much tighter. And you're going to be a lot more powerful than having slack in your arms like he has currently.
Can be and be in balance, the better for the pull. Okay, and the grip comes in accordingly. All right, so with stiff knees, be careful about the bar. Don't move the bar. Bar belongs to the platform. Knees come forward. And you'll notice that the shins are at a very slight angle. Leave the hips up. Don't move.
Bar's too close to his shins. This should not be the case.
The hips down. Now squeeze the chest up.
Overall, though, besides the bar being too close, this is pretty ideal starting position. Look at this back angle. This is what I was talking about. His back is almost parallel to the floor. His hips are high. His shoulders are in front of the bar. This is a pretty good starting position. His only issue is this bar should be kicked about an inch and a half forward right here, because the bar should travel in a straight line. What's going to happen here is the bar is going to run into his quads or into his shins. It's going to feel all awkward and get kicked out in front of him. So that needs to be corrected.
And you'll notice also that the arms are at a slight
See, that's dragging right up his shins. Terrible, inefficient form. It should travel in a straight line. It'll be much faster. He's slowing himself down this way.
It up in a straight vertical line over the middle of the foot and down.
Breaking with the bar on the way down. That's terrible. Bar should be traveling in a straight line on the way down as well. It should not be going in this half angle position where it comes down like this and then like this. It shouldn't just follow your body down. You should deadlift up and then let it down straight in front of you, under control, but you don't have to, do this kind of stuff.
Raise your hips up higher than that. That's the position. Chest up.
Bar's too close to his shins.
Chest up position. If the position was easy to get into, it was wrong. The dead lift begins from a dead stop. There's not supposed to be a stretch reflex off the floor in the deadlift.
This is correct. Touch and go reps they have no merit. They're not going to get you stronger. There's no payoff to them. Unless you're a bodybuilder, don't be doing touch and go reps. They are not going to carry over your 1 rep max. You're going to get a much better carryover as far as dead stop reps. Touch and go is just ego lifting. You're cheating yourself. If you do 3 reps touch and go, you're not going to be able to do 3 reps dead stop. It's just, they don't equate at all. So every deadlift rep should be dead stop.
Deadlift is the pull, okay? And if you diminish the pull by bouncing off the floor, then you just remove some of the work from the effort.
Spot on.
Okay? What about, I've seen the switch grip. The alternate grip is useful at heavy work set weight if you can't hold onto the bar with a double overhand grip. There's a price to be paid for an alternate grip. When we are double overhand, shoulders are in rotational symmetry. Both are internally rotated. On an alternate grip, the supine hand is now in external rotation. This changes the involvement of the musculature from one side to the other. It's better to be symmetrical. Okay. A lot of guys at the high levels now are beginning to use a double overhand hook grip, which doesn't slip. The alternate grip works because as the bar is trying to spin out of this hand, it's spinning into this hand. So it's a very secure grip, but again, you have an asymmetry at the shoulder. Okay. And what I would rather you do is just do a double overhand unhooked grip, as heavy as you can go, because the deadlift is a grip exercise too. And then use a hook grip on your work sets if you can.
Now, this is actually pretty good advice because I agree with him. Double overhand as high as possible, or even do hook grip. Hook grip is going to be the most efficient grip as far as maximizing your potential, because at some point you're not going to be able to double overhand as much weight as you can lift. Like, your grip's going to give out. And hook grip allows you to stay in that proper position where everything's symmetrical, and you're not going to get that helicopter effect like you do on mixed grip. Mixed grip you can hold onto the bar well, but the problem is, so let me get in front of the camera here, mixed grip. See what wants to happen? If I turn my hand this way, supinated, my hand wants to turn in naturally. That's the natural tendency. So when you have a bar in your hands and you're like this, the bar's going to want to naturally kick out in front of you on the underhand side. So oftentimes you're going to get this drifting effect on the other underhand side where the bar kicks out in front of you and helicopters away from you. This is going to always happen when you get to your knees, and it's going to make your lockout much more difficult. So you get less of that with hook grip because you're in a symmetrical position. Hook grip's a little tougher to learn. There's a higher learning curve, but it's much more efficient. If you can't, use the alternate. Now, my preferred breathing on this is for you to take a breath at the bottom. Okay. Hold it. I agree with that. Breath at the bottom is probably your best bet as far as the deadlift is concerned. So totally agree there. Do the pull, set it back down, and then exhale. Because again, breath is support. Air is support for the back. And this is a stupid place to lose support. Okay. So try to fight the urge to exhale at the top. I agree with that completely. You exhale briefly in between reps at the bottom and gather your breath. You don't exhale at the top. You hold your breath on the concentric and the eccentric. That's going to put you in the strongest position. So I know some guys try to get their breath at the top. I think you're far more efficient getting your breath off the floor, but that's just my opinion.
Exhale at the bottom. On the floor. Okay. When you're unloaded. Okay. That's when you exhale, when you're unloaded. What about, I've seen some people like just drop it at the top of it. That's for ostentatious, histrionic that are trying to make noise and call attention to themselves. It's disrespectful of the equipment. It's disrespectful of other people in the gym.
I think he's talking about me from my basement days. Well, for one, because this was probably I'm sure Mark saw some of those, but no, I agree in a sense. Now I'm like, I think that's ridiculous, and I would never do that anymore. Like throw the bar down and all that, but it was just the raw emotion at the time of like, you hit a massive PR on deadlift, you're fired up. You want to spike the bar to the ground because you feel unstoppable. So that's just kind of how it was back then. But I find that hilarious. It probably really aggravated him seeing people do that. Just, hit a PR and fire the bar to the ground like a missile. And I destroyed my parents' basement floor doing that, like even with a bunch of mats and plywood and all that. So I definitely I wouldn't do that anymore. I think it's ridiculous now that I'm 30 years old. But when you're like a teenager and you hit a big lift and you're fired up and you just slam the bar down, it's just emotion, taking over.
And if you do that, you're not doing the last half of the deadlift, and you're a crap. Okay? I'm serious about that. Widen your grip about a finger.
I think we touched the nerve there with Mark. He does not like you firing the bar into the floor. Don't do that, guys.
That'll make it easier to get in the middle there. Now keep the hips high, squeeze the chest.
So still we got the issues of the bar is too close to the shins. In summary, the issues I have with Mark Rippetoe teaching the deadlift. He has his lifters starting with the bar way too close to their shins. The bar should be out here. We do not want friction against the shins on the way up. It should be a straight line to the knees. The other issue is he has his lifters with their grip too close. I would widen out slightly to free up some room to keep the arms taut, and do not drive the knees out into the arms. That's not a good cue. But as far as the starting position with the shoulders being slightly over the bar and the hips being high enough, that's spot on. So there's some good, some bad. This isn't a perfect video example, but,
That's the work of the deadlift. Good?
And then the other issue is he's not correcting at all. He's having the guy slide the bar down his quads, which is not good. That's going to put him in even a worse position than if he just let the bar down. So I pretty much agree with 50% of what Mark says in this video, and I disagree with 50%. And I don't know if it's because he's Mark Rippetoe and this video has 2 million views that no one dissects it and even says, hey, there's some issues here. But there's clearly some issues here. This isn't going to make an explosive deadlifter if they follow these mechanics. I would say 50% of this is how to deadlift wrong. So I know that's a little critical. Mark's done a lot of great things for the industry, and he's obviously starting strength has been huge. Everybody knows about it. It's really good for novice lifters and everybody starting out with. So he's done a lot of good stuff, but this is just, there's a lot wrong here. And I don't know if everyone gives him a pass because he's Mark Rippetoe or what, but there's clearly some issues, and this is going to make this guy a worse deadlifter than if he fixed some of this stuff. So
chest up. Finish the chest up real hard. You're a little round.
That was a better pull.
Squeeze the chest up.
You see how it's just scraping up his shins, though? I mean, that's not good. And then he's also doing this braking thing on the way down. I know this might come across as pretty critical of Mark, but I'm just trying to break it down as I see it. This is my truth as far as what I see. So if you like this video, give it an upvote, comment, and subscribe for the sake of the algorithm. I appreciate it, guys. And I'll keep the content coming.